I felt like I was being punked. I was so caught off guard for a second, I wondered if they were playing the wrong film, and the jury bought that. Can you believe it? It's ridiculous. Gentlemen, worship your wife the way that George Russell worships his. That is the way marriage is supposed to be, okay? I was baffled. I was baffled. I'm still baffled just thinking back on it right now. Intrigued, but confused. Hello, beautiful people of the internet. How are you doing today? My name is Jackie, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today in this video, I am going to be talking about the TV shows and movies I watched recently. This is my 7th episode of what I watched recently, so let's dive right into it. This is my first time filming one of these videos since November, I believe, and I have 7 things I want to discuss in this video. There was one more movie that I also watched, but I don't really have anything great to say about it, so I might just mention it in passing. So the first show I want to talk about in this video is The Witcher Season 2. It feels like it's been an eternity since I watched this, so I don't remember all the specific thoughts I had at the time. I will say overall I did really enjoy this season. It had been such a long wait, and it was overall very good. The main character of The Witcher is Geralt of Rivia, and Geralt is a Witcher, which is basically a monster hunter with super strength and extra enhanced abilities. When you become a Witcher, they inject you with a serum to give you enhanced abilities, and you're basically devoting your life to monster hunting. You promise that you'll never get married or have children, things like that. And the 2 other main characters of this show are a mage named Yennefer of Vengerberg and Princess Ciri, whose kingdom has been destroyed by war. I did see some people online say they did not like this season as much because apparently it took some liberties with the source material. The Witcher is based off a series of books, and those books were also turned into a video game series. Now, I have not read the books or played the games, so personally, I really enjoyed the season, but also I don't know what happened in the books, and maybe had I read the books, I also would have been disappointed. As someone who's only seen the show, though, I thought it was a good season. This season explored the lives of the elves in this universe more. The elves are basically very oppressed by mankind, and their leader is trying to restore the elves to their former glory. I thought the plot of the season overall had some interesting twists and turns. There were some things that happened that really surprised me, and the season ended with a pretty big plot twist that I didn't see coming until the scene where the plot twist was revealed, so I didn't realize what was about to happen until approximately 5 seconds before the reveal. And honestly, as someone who has not read the books, I have questions. I really am wanting to know more about the logistics of this plot twist, because I'm a little confused. Intrigued, but confused. Overall, I would say I would give season 2 of The Witcher a 7 out of 10. Overall, solid season. Next, my mom and I watched a Netflix miniseries called Stay Close. This is a mystery thriller based off the book of the same name by Harlan Coben. This show was interesting. Let's put it that way. So this is a mystery thriller miniseries set in modern day Britain, and the show starts off with this wealthy young man going missing after visiting a nightclub. And then one of our other main characters is a mother of 3 named Megan, and Megan is finally marrying her partner after many years together. However, Megan has a secret in her past, and the night of her bachelorette party, someone leaves something on her doorstep, basically telling her I know about your secret. I don't want to give too much away, but it seems that the disappearance of this man and also Megan's secret and her past may be connected in a certain way. That's all that I can say. And there's a bunch of other characters we follow in this miniseries, including the detective who is investigating this disappearance, a photographer who may also be connected to the other characters, a woman who works at this club called Vipers, and Megan's teenage daughter is also a major character. I don't want to be too hard on Stay Close because I think it was all right when you take it for what it is. My mom and I were invested in it. We spent a lot of time talking together about what we thought was going to happen in the show. There were a lot of questions that we were excited to see answered. However, I think this show was at times way too ridiculous to take seriously. Some of the characters did make really dumb decisions that were just hard to understand. Like, you know when you're watching something and the characters are just being so dumb and you're just like, why? Because there's such a clear path for them to take that's smarter and they just choose not to. However, the thing about the show that bothered me the most were these two characters, and they were assassins. They were a couple who kill people together. You can hire this boyfriend and girlfriend to commit murder for you, and even though they are assassins, picture in your mind what you think an assassin looks like, okay? These two looked nothing like that. They dressed like demented prep school students. And they met when they were both in the theater. And so they will do things like stopping in the middle of the street to dance along to Creep by Radiohead while actively dumping a body. Wish I was kidding. It was ridiculous. And the names of these two were Ken and Barbie. Ken and Barbie, the dancing assassins with their like pleated skirt and their sweater vest. I felt like I was being punked. I was like, do they expect me to take this seriously? Is this supposed to be satire? I was baffled. I was baffled. I'm still baffled just thinking back on it right now. That was the worst part of the show for me. I don't know what they were trying to achieve there. Was I supposed to think it was funny? Because I didn't. Was I supposed to take it seriously? Because I didn't. Apparently it was actually in the book as well, so maybe Harlan Coben just wanted to see what his publisher would let him get away with? I don't know. It was really weird and it took me out of the show. It just ruined the tension and the experience. My mom and I also 100% predicted who the killer was in the end. We both saw it coming a mile away, which was a little bit disappointing, though there was a micro twist at the end that I don't believe we saw coming, so that was good, I guess. Overall, because of the dancing assassins, I can't give Stay Close a rating higher than 5 out of 10. It was not very good. I guess it was good for what it was, but I wouldn't recommend you run off and binge the show or anything. Next, I watched a Netflix true crime documentary called Dream/Killer. Now, this documentary actually came out about 4 or 5 years ago, and it mainly follows Bill Ferguson, who is trying to clear the name of his son, Ryan. Ryan was imprisoned for a murder that he claimed the entire time he was innocent of, and there was really no concrete evidence tying him to this crime. The DNA didn't match, and things were not adding up. However, the police basically latched onto this theory and didn't consider any other suspects other than him. One of the people they had testifying against Ryan was his former friend, Charles Chuck Erickson, and Chuck testified that he and Ryan had killed this man named Kent Heithold. And the reason that Chuck believed they had committed this murder was because the night the murder happened, he had been basically blackout drunk, and he had a dream that they committed the murder. And that was their star witness. Your Honor, I know the DNA at the crime scene doesn't match either of these two men. However, he had a dream that they did it, so, throw this guy in prison. And the jury bought that. Can you believe it? It's ridiculous. Luckily, Ryan Ferguson was eventually released after spending almost 10 years in prison, and the reason I ended up discovering this documentary in the first place is because Ryan Ferguson was actually a contestant on the most recent season of the CBS reality competition show, The Amazing Race, where he raced around the world with one of his best friends. And I found his story so interesting, so that's what made me watch this documentary. Really just a crazy story, and seeing him also on The Amazing Race, I have so much respect for him as a person. He really has such a great attitude even after going through this understandably traumatic ordeal. After losing 9 years of your life, basically spending your entire 20s behind bars, I could completely understand if you were bitter at the world after that happened to you, but he has such a positive attitude and is so appreciative for everything in life now, so I think that is really awesome. So it makes me very happy to see that he's been able to adjust to living in the real world again, and that he was able to have this once-in-a-lifetime experience traveling with his friend. I'm so happy for him because what happened to him was not acceptable at all. It is baffling to watch this documentary because obviously I know the justice system is sometimes corrupt. I know that police often do not do their jobs, but just watching it all play out, even though you know these things, you still can't help but be wowed by the complete shit show that happened. Like, this should never have happened. There was absolutely no physical evidence. In fact, the physical evidence excluded the two of them, but the police went with it anyway. They fed Charles Erickson information to groom him as a witness. The prosecutor, don't even get me started on him. I hate this guy now, okay? I have a personal grudge against him because he is the definition of a corrupt prosecutor. I hate Kevin Crane. All my friends hate Kevin Crane, okay? I also feel like the police took advantage of Charles Erickson too. They really manipulated him and got him to say these things to send his friend to prison. And the unfortunate thing is, even though I believe that neither Ryan Ferguson or Charles Erickson committed this murder, to this day, Charles Erickson is still in prison, and it's very difficult for him to get out because he did confess to this crime. So even though I don't think he actually did it, he technically confessed, so he may never get out of prison. And while many parts of this documentary were shocking and upsetting, I do think the love that Bill Ferguson has for his son is very moving. This man spent years trying to clear his son's name and doing whatever it took. It really just shows what a devoted father he is, and I admire how he never gave up on his son for even a moment. He really went the extra mile to prove his son's innocence, and that I thought was really beautiful. Overall, would give this documentary an 8 out of 10. Go watch it if you're interested. Next, I watched the new adaptation of Death on the Nile. Going into this movie, I did not have very high expectations because I watched the new adaptation of Murder on the Orient Express, also starring Kenneth Branagh as Poirot, and I didn't think it was awful, but I didn't really like it. I thought it was very average, not as good as the book. So I went into this film with no expectations. I was telling myself it's probably not going to be good. And I was pleasantly surprised. I thought it was a pretty entertaining film. This film is based off one of the Poirot mysteries by Agatha Christie, and Poirot is trying to solve a murder that takes place on a ship cruising down the Nile River in Egypt. And the film did change some elements from the book. The overall resolution to who the killer is stayed the same. However, some of the side characters from the book were changed. To a certain degree, I do understand that because the book had a lot of characters. I looked back at the Wikipedia page for this book, and some of the characters in this book I didn't even remember at all, and I read it. So I definitely understand why they cut some corners a little bit to make it a better product for the movie. Overall, I think the acting was strong pretty much all around, and this movie was also visually very stunning. Some people will probably be upset that it changed things from the book. Overall, though, I don't think that hindered my enjoyment very much. There were some exceptions. But I do think one of the good things about changing some things from the book is that even though I read the book, I was still surprised at how some of the events of the movie unfolded. Now, there was one thing that they added to this movie that I personally didn't really like, and that was they created a tragic backstory for Poirot. In my opinion, Poirot does not need a tragic backstory, and it just came across as kind of cliched. This was sort of similar to what was done in the ABC Murders miniseries starring John Malkovich. That also tried to give Poirot a tragic backstory, and I just don't think it's necessary. This film starts off with a younger Poirot serving in the war, and I was so caught off guard for a second, I wondered if they were playing the wrong film. Just thought this whole element of the plot was completely unnecessary. Poirot doesn't need a sad sob story to be a great character. Just let Poirot be Poirot. I thought this was a really fun film. I enjoyed watching it. I liked that there were parts where I was genuinely surprised, even though I'd already read the book. But I also liked that they kept the original ending the same, because had they changed the resolution to the mystery, I would not have been very happy. Overall, really liked this. Honestly, I think I'll give it an 8 out of 10. Yeah, this really exceeded my expectations. I also watched recently the older adaptation of Murder on the Orient Express starring Albert Finney. Don't really have much to say about this film. Overall, I thought it was good, but I don't really have anything to say about it. It was better than the Kenneth Branagh Murder on the Orient Express. 7 out of 10, I guess. Next, I watched the 2017 miniseries adaptation of Little Women. I don't want to say too much about this adaptation in this video because I am planning to make an entire video for my adaptation battle series comparing the different adaptations of Little Women. Overall, I will say this one was okay, but I don't think it was particularly memorable. It wasn't fantastic. It also wasn't awful. This miniseries was very faithful to the book by and large. There were some little things here or there that they tweaked. What I had an issue with was the pacing of this miniseries. I felt like the ending was so rushed, and the third episode of the 3 episodes, the final episode, was by far the best one. But we were just racing through the events so fast. That's why I think they actually should have cut some things out from the book, because since they kept so many of the episodic chapters from the beginning of the book, when it got to the ending, they were just out of time. 3 episodes was not enough. Also, only 1 out of the 3 episodes featured Professor Bear. I know I'm Professor Bear's only fan, the only member of his fan club, but I wanted so much more of the Professor. I personally love him. I don't think he gets enough love. And I liked the way his character was portrayed. I think they included aspects of his character from the books that a lot of other adaptations don't include, such as how wonderful he is with the children in the boarding house, which is one of the things that makes Jo like him. But there was just so little of him. That was really the problem with this miniseries, I think, is they tried to do too much. And because of that, it kind of had the vibe of, oh, we're going to be super faithful. Oh, shit, we're out of time. Oh, let's just get all this in here really quick. They needed to either cut some stuff out or have more episodes. Part of me wants to give the Little Women miniseries a 7 out of 10. However, I don't think I enjoyed it as much as the other things that I rated a 7 in this video. So maybe I have to give this a 6 out of 10? Or I should have rated the other things that I gave 7 and 8 and give this a 7. It's either a 6 or 7. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't great either. I'll probably never watch it again. And now, we've reached the part of the video where I gush about one of my new favorite shows. And that's The Gilded Age on HBO. This is from Julian Fellowes, the creator of my all-time favorite television show, Downton Abbey. And if you love Downton Abbey, you gotta watch The Gilded Age. It is one of my new faves out of all shows currently on the air. I wouldn't say the show has achieved all-time favorite status yet, but I will definitely say it is one of my favorite television shows out of TV shows currently on the air. It was really enjoyable and it gave me exactly what I was hoping for when I started watching it. This show takes place in 1880s New York, and it mainly follows the conflicts between the new money people and the old money people. The series starts off with this young woman named Marion Brooke, and her father has just died, leaving her penniless. So Marion moves from Pennsylvania to New York City to live with her aunts, wealthy widow Agnes Van Ryn and spinster Ada Brooke. I guess Marion is the closest thing the show has to a heroine. However, the other characters were the ones that I liked the best. Agnes Van Ryn, played by Christine Baranski, is probably my favorite character. If you watched Downton Abbey, she is the closest thing this show has to a dowager countess. She has such amazing dialogue. Agnes is a wealthy old woman who's very resistant to change, and she doesn't like her neighbors who just moved in across the street, the Russells, because the Russells are new money. They acquired their wealth through George Russell's business, and to the old money people of New York, their money isn't as good as their money, because even though the Russells are some of the richest people in New York, old money people think they're superior because they don't have to work for their money. They come from a long line of powerful people, and that makes them not want to associate with the Russells. It's an age-old dilemma. So the Russell family are also major characters on this show. We have George Russell, his wife Bertha, and their 2 children, their young adult son Larry and their teenage daughter Gladys. I love George and Bertha Russell. Talk about a power couple. Bertha Russell really wants to be accepted by the New York elite, and she will do whatever it takes to make the old money people accept her. I mean, they're pretty petty things to be worried about, but you gotta respect her hustle. She never gives up in pursuit of what she wants. And her husband George are so in love with each other. George wants more than anything to see his wife happy, and so even though he thinks that her desire to befriend the old money people is kind of trivial, he'll do whatever it takes to make his wife happy, including, using his power and influence and potentially threatening people. So, you don't want to root for this pair of schemers. But I do, because They're just so ambitious in pursuit of their goals, and their strong love for each other is just wonderful. Gentlemen, worship your wife the way that George Russell worships his. That is the way marriage is supposed to be, okay? I just love the way the two of them are depicted as being so devoted to each other even after all these years, because in all seriousness, that's what marriage is supposed to be about. You're not supposed to be complaining about your wife, being like, oh, she's my ball and chain. Your spouse is supposed to be the person that you love and would do anything for, so I love this depiction of this couple where nothing is gonna get between them. Obviously, you know, depending on how long the show goes on, something might eventually come between them, but for now, I'm just gonna enjoy it while it lasts. Another one of my favorite characters on this show is Peggy Scott, a young Black woman that Marion meets on the train to New York, and Peggy ends up becoming a secretary for Agnes Van Ryn. However, Peggy's ambition in life is to become a successful writer. I really liked Peggy as a character. I think she's someone who's very easy to root for. I also appreciate how this show didn't gloss over the struggles that Black people faced in 1882 New York, and it didn't gloss over the obstacles that Peggy would have had to overcome as a woman of color. But also at the same time, the main characters are accepting towards her, which is nice to see. I think it balanced what modern viewers want to see and also the historical reality in a way that worked really well. We also follow the servants working for Agnes Van Ryn and for the Russells a little bit. We don't get their stories as much. I'm assuming their characters will be more developed in future seasons. I'm so excited for season 2 of this show, and I'm gonna have to wait a year, which sucks, but I'm so glad I watched this. 9 out of 10, honestly. I really liked the show. If you enjoyed Downton Abbey and you haven't seen this yet, go watch it. So that is everything I have watched recently. Have you watched any of these shows or movies that I did? If so, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section. My social media links are down below if you want to follow me on Tumblr, Instagram, or be my friend on Goodreads. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a stupendous rest of your day. Bye, and I'll see you next time.